Do you want to know which sugars are okay and which are not okay? It would be nice to just have that knowledge right in our head, right? So, we worked with those obvious sugars yesterday, but those aren't the worst culprits in our pantry. It's those hidden sugars that are in the food products that we eat that keep us addicted. And if you don't know what the best sugars are, it's easy to fall back, right, and start eating it again. So there's now an easier way to figure out how much sugar is added to a product that we purchase in the store with the new USDA nutrition labels. And we're going to talk about those in a little bit because I always think that clarity is key when we're trying to make a change in our life. So first, I'm going to recap a little bit, introduce myself. I'm Carol Berg with Verder Wellness. And make sure that you watch yesterday's video so that you can remove the obvious sugars from your refrigerator and pantry. And for your activity, you want to post the picture of your binge pile. You want to remove everything, make a pile, take a picture, and then let us know which was the hardest things to let go, or the hardest thing, one thing to let go of, and post it in our activity for yesterday. Yesterday we talked about 4 grams of added sugar equals a teaspoon. A teaspoon. And so if you can remember that, that'll help you as you go along in your quest to get off of sugar. So maybe yesterday you discovered that there might be other things that have high sugar content in your refrigerator, things like dressings or canned items. And so that discovery is a really great one. And my clients often tell me that they don't eat sugary foods. Sugar's not an issue for them. They're not into sugar. And yet they're surprised to find that a lot of their products in their pantry actually contain sugar. The breads they love, the canned beans, the different types of dressing, they have sugar in them. Or juices even that they thought that were really nutritious. 75% of them from our food manufacturers have added sugars. There's about 200 different types of added sugars that they can use names for. And I have a list here that is available to you if you want it, but you don't have to have it, and I'll tell you why later. This has about 45. And there's names on here that we may or may not recognize as being sugar, things like maltitol, maltodextrin, natural sweeteners. What the heck is that? Sorbitol, xylitol. Of course, we know that cane sugar, and we always think that brown sugar is better, or at least I did growing up. I thought it was a better sugar. But there's a lot more even than is on that list that I have. So it's important to have that clarity, but you don't have to memorize all of those. So in our Healthy Living Lifestyle program, we talk about eating things that aren't as damaging as some of the other things that we can eat. And so that is a really important thing that we keep kind of going over and over. I have a worksheet for you called Eating This Instead of That. So there's about 6 things that you can choose from to eat good whole foods instead of other foods that have sugar added in them, because whole foods don't have sugar in them added. So if you go into your produce department, you see all those beautiful vegetables, those displays of amazing vegetables and fruits that make your mouth start to water. Those don't have infused sugars. And so think of whole foods as that, no added sugars in whole foods. Processed foods, however, to make processed foods, the food manufacturer cook everything out because they boil the foods that they process for us. And whenever the temperatures of food goes over 118 degrees, the vitamins and the enzymes are all evaporated out. So they end up having no taste and no nutrients. So the food manufacturers had to add in the vitamins again, and the sugar and the salt and other preservatives. Sugar and salts are considered preservatives, but they have to add more preservatives in there so that they'll keep for a long time, for years, in fact. Remember Mary Poppins? Well, Mary Poppins, the old version came out when I was a little girl, and I will never forget her song about how a teaspoon of sugar makes the medicine go down. Well, apparently the food manufacturers saw that movie too, because they put in sugar to help that food that is tasteless and has no nutrition in it. They help us eat that with added sugars. Now, it's true that the body needs and uses glucose. In fact, it needs it for energy. What happens to the excess, though? So the excess is stored in our muscles and in our liver. And then after those two areas are full, then it goes into our fat cells. So there are 3 types of sugar that cause problems, or problems when we eat sweets: the frequency that we eat them, the amount or quantity that we eat, and the type of sugar. So we'll be talking about those 3 things as we go through this video. The effects of too much sugar, it actually starts out in childhood with an impaired carbohydrate metabolism system. So it causes children to have hyperactivity, learning problems, chronic colic when they're babies, cramping, tooth decay, among a lot of other things. But the thing is that leads to adult issues of digestive and energy problems, sleep problems, candida, obesity, depression, and even alcoholism. It's always good to trace back where you're having trouble with, all the way back to your childhood. Now then people ask about artificial sugars. Well, artificial sugars may not cause health problems if they're used in minute amounts. The thing is, though, they still provide a sweetness expectation to the food that we eat without adding anything beneficial to our body. It's just adding chemicals that our body doesn't request or need or want. But we'll talk about something that we can add that is beneficial to the body. So the USDA did a study in 2014, and this is the latest study that I could find on added sugars and sweeteners that are available. And they found that the average person eats about 131 pounds of sugar per year per person. 131 pounds. Whew. Their guidelines suggest that any added sugars and sweeteners should not exceed 10% of the daily calorie total. So the average diet you always see is 2,000 calories per day. Whether that's right or wrong, who knows, but 2,000 calories per day. So that would be about 12.5 teaspoons. So I wanted to see how much 12.5 teaspoons are. I'm going to put in 12 teaspoons, maybe 12.5. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm going to leave it at 12 there. There you go. But then they found that the average person consumed 366 calories a day, 23 teaspoons of sugar a day in their food products. So I'm going to add another 11 teaspoons to this jar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, if you're wondering what kind of sugar this is, it's coconut sugar. I never have granulated sugar around the house, but I do have some coconut sugar for people who feel like they need sugar. So, now I wondered how much sugar that was when I was doing this, when I was testing this out. And so I got my measuring cups out, and first I got a 1/3 of a cup out, measuring cup, and it was too much. Actually, a half of a cup of sugar a day that we consume. Now, can you imagine just eating this? I mean, just taking it in a spoonful and eating it? You wouldn't do it. So the food processors make it into products that we enjoy so that we'll eat the sugar. Pretty interesting, huh? All right. So in 2016, after they found this out in 2014, they changed the nutrition labels to include added sugars so that you don't have to remember all of the names of 200 different types of sugar, so that you'll know when you look on a label where the added sugar is. And so I'm showing this to you. I hope that you see it okay. And I've highlighted it here. It shows total sugars, and then it shows the added sugars. And this is a label that they made clear to us. And so if you want a copy of this, I'm happy to send it to you. Just message me that you want it. So I took a look at some of my products, and voila, this arugula. This is a sauce that I used to use on some of my salads and stuff, and it actually has 3 grams of sugar. So that's per serving. So that's almost a teaspoon per serving. I love sushi ginger. It has 1 gram. So not much, but enough. And that was mine. I thought this was better because it was only a spread. And lo and behold, it has 7 grams of sugar per serving, almost 2 teaspoons. Now, so then something that does not have sugar in it, I've highlighted this. I don't know if you can see it. I hope that you can. But it doesn't show any added sugar. So this is a yogurt. This is a goat yogurt, which is a really great yogurt to get because there are no added sugars. There's not 21 grams of sugar. And, you know, taco sauce, it has no added sugar. This is a chili garlic sauce that we love. No added sugar. And a lot of people like to eat mayonnaise. Well, Veganese generally has no added sugar, and there's about 5 or 6 different kinds of this, so it doesn't taste exactly like mayonnaise, so you might want to try different kinds if you feel like you want to try something, and check and make sure that there are no added sugars in there, because you don't want a half a cup of sugar every day in your diet, right? Next thing on our list is tracking your use of sugar. So the Crave-buster activities makes it easy to get through the detox. And I have a sugar tracker for you as a handout that you're going to get if you're on my email list. If not, PDF or message me and I'll send you the PDF over. And on this tracker was done by James Clear of Atomic Habits, expert in that field of habit tracking. And so this is copied after his suggestion, this habit tracker. And it's nice because you can put down here the different habits that you have. And across the top, we have the months and the days. And so you can just see how your habits go. And I drink about 5 glasses of water a day, about 60 ounces of water. So I track that. And that'll be available to you so that you can track your use of sugar. I would also suggest that you put on there the Crave-buster activities that we talked about yesterday, you know, turning on the music, taking deep breaths, stretching, you know, doing any number of things, head banging exercises and so forth, so that you can get past the craving as they happen. Because like I talked about yesterday, it only takes about 2 or 3 days. This is day 2. Day 3 is going to be your hardest day, probably. So just keep tracking everything that you're doing and make a note when you do it, every time that you do it. And it's proven to work. You'll be twice as successful as if you actually track this. So in your workbook now, you are actually going to have in your journal something that tells you to eat these things instead of these. And these are all whole foods, and these are not whole foods. And it tells you the difference between them. And you'll have your sugar categories, your sugar tracker. Your activity for today is to post at least one category of the foods from today's journal page that you're going to commit to eating. Doing one thing, doing this instead of that. Maybe it is adding whole leaf stevia, which is what I talked about that I was going to share with you. Whole leaf stevia is actually just a dried stevia is a weed, and you can get it in your health food store and just add it instead of sugar. Because the thing about whole leaf stevia is that it's nutritious to our body. It has vitamins, it has enzymes in it, and it's sweet. So you can add it to your coffee. I even made a pie with it, and it tastes just great. You don't need sugar to make a pie, which is, my husband was thrilled to know because he loves pies. And so for Father's Day, I made him a pie using stevia. And what I noticed the difference between stevia and sugar, like when we go out and get something that has sugar in it, is that it kind of leaves this film over our teeth. That probably adds to the tooth decay. Your activity today is post a category of food that you're going to commit to changing from this to that. And then post a picture or a comment of the worst sugar thing that you no longer eat. And why not? Why don't you eat it any longer? So, just to recap, today, it's those sneaky sugars that drive up our daily intake, up to a half a cup a day, right? We don't need those for sure. So beyond the obvious sugars, these are the sugars that are keeping us addicted. If we start looking at the added sugars on the labels, remember that 4 grams equals 1 teaspoon. So when you see 20 grams, you know there's 5 teaspoons in that product. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.